What's up, guys? Ronin here. Today is the traveling episode, so I'm going to try to do a download of my brain for as many ideas as I can to give you both like tips for how to travel properly, how to get out there and do it. You know, there's so many people like I see trying to travel, and it's just like, man, it's painful. It's seriously painful. And then also I want to talk about what it is about travel that is so special. And because it's not that easy to finger, actually. Because in some ways, traveling is not any different than where you live now, right? There was an old saying, right? And the guy said, what's that village like down there? This is like 1,000 years ago or whatever. And the guy said, well, it's just the same barking dogs, you know. And he said, well, have you been there? And he said, don't need to. I got everything I need right here, And that's kind of been the attitude in a lot of people, and that's easy to get in that mindset, right? And a lot of blogs right now, there's so many travel blogs out there. And to me, as a guy who's been essentially on the road for 32 years in various places, I was in 50 countries before I was 25, so I had really seen a lot of stuff. And it wasn't like, it wasn't like 3 hours in the airport. It was like train across Russia, it was like seriously hitchhiking across Norway, camping, stuff like that. So I had seen a lot. And so when I see these bloggers, right now Instagram and everything, there's all kinds of stuff out there. And I don't want to diss other guys. It's fine. It's good. If people get motivated, that's fucking great. But at the same time, if you're sitting there and you're looking for help, you're looking for information, it is pretty hard to get good information. Really, because there's so much stuff that's not true. There's so many blogs out there where people get sponsored by hotels and this and that, and they'll just go to a hotel and take a selfie or whatever. So that's like really common, especially female bloggers. Oh my gosh, the Instagram. You meet them when you travel. And I just want to say that I think I'm against that. Like, I'm really against. I think that's dangerous. It's super dangerous because somebody who has a good heart, wants to see the world, they have this. I think the desire to improve yourself and to see more and to be bigger and to be more is a very sacred thing. It's like a fucking very big thing for people, for humans, men and women. It's not a joke. It's not something to be taken advantage of. It's like, same with, babies and things like that. And there's certain things that you just should not fuck with, young people need hope, older people need hope, right? So you don't want to mess with these kind of key mechanisms in humans. And that's what I think a lot of people are doing, even if they're not doing it on purpose, but they're into something that puts them down that track. So I want to give you as honest as I can. Okay. I've traveled a lot. I want some questions below, and I'm happy to do a follow-up and all that. Okay, I just want to kind of start with why traveling is special. Okay, what is it about it? What is it that, like, because logically you're like, okay, I live in, wherever, Oklahoma City, and, and I, if I go to another city, there's going to be cars there, there's going to be Starbucks there, there's going to be, like, I'm going to basically leave my house, I'm going to go out there, spend a bunch of money. I don't know anybody there. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's like, most of life is like people, right? Meeting people and going out, right? So if you don't know anybody, it can be lonely, right? So there's a lot of things. And then also mentally, a lot of people think that if they travel, then things are going to be perfect, right? They're going to be just insane. Like, it's so hard to put into words. I really, this is going to be one of those episodes where I'm going to be spouting stuff off, because going into too deep into each point, one, it's not going to work. Two, they're kind of self-explanatory. So I want to kind of just like rip off all the important things that I think, need to be said. So the one thing is that one place is not better than another. Okay. So it's not like I'm saying, Japan is number one, or Thailand is number one, or anywhere is number one. And you have to go to this one place because this place is awesome, right? Now, there are very, very awesome things in different places. And, I want to introduce those things to you guys. I want to show you guys so you don't waste time going to the more boring places that are more of a ripoff, which my first traveling one was when I went to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And part of the reason why I could just see how obviously, just basically what a sham and a con it was, is because I've done so much traveling. And I looked at it, I'm like, there's nothing here. Like, there's just like a sidewalk. Like, this is crazy. But most people don't travel that much, so they're in their heads, right? They're in their heads. I'm not in my head, ever. I'm like pretty much out there. I'm looking, I'm like, no, there's nothing here. There's nothing exciting. This is bullshit. This is like, you're touring an empty building, and they're telling you stories of people who used to live there. It's somewhat interesting. There is some interesting part to it. But why the fuck would you travel around the world to listen to some tour guide tell you a bunch of stories? You can watch them on the internet, right? The stories, there's no point, right? If you're going to learn a specific story from a specific guy, like you're going to talk to some guy who fought like I went to the Philippines back in 89, and I went to a small island, and I met a guy who fought with the Americans, and he was a translator for the radio, and he told me all these stories about airmen getting shot down and like eating coconuts because they couldn't eat the spicy Filipino food. And I sat on his plantation, we had coffee, and it was like absolutely epic. So that story was the story he told me that day was insane, but it wasn't a story I could get anywhere else. And I had to get it from him. I had to get it by befriending him. Basically, we kind of marooned on his island, essentially. We needed to get gas. And then we stopped in there. And then he was there. And we started talking to him, bought some gas. And then went up to his house and made friendship, right? But, so, that's why I don't like a lot of American tours. They're just bullshit to me. Basically, it's just some bonehead telling you a story that he memorized. And I just kind of go on this a little bit. I cannot stand when they get all excited about these fake stories. Like they're talking about Benjamin Franklin, and they're like, and then Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, he knew that this other man, the thing is here's the thing. Here's what I don't like about it, is they weren't there. They were not there, and they don't have any special access to that story. So you know what I mean? Like the dynamic that creates. It creates a fucking McDonald's type job. That's what it creates. The guy's just sitting there repeating the story, trying to make it sound exciting, but he doesn't have any insight to it. He wasn't there. He didn't discover the story. You know what I mean? There's nothing there. It's all fake. Okay, so that type of traveling is not even traveling to me. That's just, that's just like, you may as well just, sit in a fucking room and listen to stories, right, about places or whatever, And no. Traveling it's not that one place is better than another. Well, actually, I just kind of said that I'm going to be contradicting myself a lot because there's so many different aspects. So imagine I'm trying to, like that old story of the blind guys describing the elephant, you're touching each part. Like they don't seem congruent, but in the end, you'll be like, oh, okay, I get it. So the one place is not better than another, but some places suck. Okay. So some places suck. So now you can have a good experience in a place that sucks because you meet the right people. Things could happen, right? So sometimes a place that sucks could not suck for you, okay, depending on if you're really lucky or something actually happens, something that gets you, I don't know, like it gets you out of yourself, right? I remember I was in an accident on a bus and a bunch of people died in China and back in 89, and the bus hit another bus, and then we went down this river. We smashed into the river, and a bunch of people died, and there was like blood everywhere. The guys were like, their spines were like, S's basically, and their heads were like blown open or cut open or whatever. Like it was funny because like the old cowboy movies where it wasn't funny, no, but I mean it was interesting for me because I had some EMT training as a lifeguard, and so I was very clear, but either way, that story, I won't go on the story too much, but basically that gave me a very powerful experience and knowledge about myself because I didn't know I would react that way. I was afraid, as all you young guys are, you're afraid that you're not going to rise to the challenge, right? In the moment that counts, right? I rose the challenge, and I was like, and nobody else did on the whole tour. Everybody else was like, just, basically catatonic. And I was totally like going out there ripping off fucking curtains off the bus, tying guys' heads together, putting their head back together, talking to them, trying to talk them down. I couldn't speak Chinese, but I was talking in a very smooth voice, and you could see that it was affecting them. They were feeling like somebody was there, somebody cared, right? So I was kind of doing all the different aspects of caring for trauma victims, and it all kind of came out naturally. It was awesome. It was great. Like, that was a traveling experience that was just couldn't happen anywhere else, because in America there would have been an emergency thing. We were on a small island in southern China, and it's a place where there was there wasn't many. There was like basically one hospital in the main city of Haikou, and there was nothing else. So at that time, that place sucked. Okay, that there was nothing on that road that was special, but the experience was great, and it was an experience I couldn't have had anywhere else, and it was an experience about myself too. Because, like in the States, like there's even legal repercussions for doing stuff like that, right? People worry about doing stuff like that because they're like, if I move a guy with a spinal injury and then I can get sued, right? So there's all these things to think about. In China, there wasn't. So you could actually be a normal, caring human being and actually try to help, just like you would if you were human. You know what I mean? And that was awesome. I love that about traveling. You meet that. I cannot tell you how deep that is, actually. That is just, we're born to do that, right? Especially as men, right? We're born to do that. This is inside of us, man. It's like down to the DNA level, right? And so sometimes a place can suck, but an experience can be incredibly, memorable, right? So it's not always a good thing. Sometimes a very, as you know, like sometimes a bad experience can be very memorable. And as you get older, it's kind of it's somehow a precious memory somehow. Even though it was obviously at the time, not a pleasant memory, that's for sure. But either way, so these kind of things happen when you travel. So I want to say that you do want to avoid the shitty places if you can. The boring places, just because the odds are lower that you're going to have good experiences there. Okay, so there's other places that have higher, like more things to do, more variety, and also they're different than where you are. So if you're in Osaka, you come to Tokyo, it's different. There's a lot of variety, but it's not that different from the city you live in. Right, so you got to think about that too. That's part of the reason why Westerners love Asia and why Asians love the West, because it's very different, and that in itself is interesting for human beings. Right, I remember when I was a kid, one of my best friends' families, they were Italian, and they were always yelling at each other, and they weren't angry, but they just used their hands, and they really did it just like the movies. I was like, whoa! I was like, our family was finished, right? Nobody like even said. They were you never knew anybody was angry unless dad threw the TV through the window or something, but basically like it was just like it was a Cold War, right? And his house was like it was a hot war. It was Vietnam, right? Very different, right? So that kind of like that was interesting for me. So seeing those kind of things, that kind of stuff is different. Traveling, right? But I think for myself, I think that you always want to kill as many birds with one stone as possible. Okay? So you want to hit, this is the way that I think this is the way you pack shit in life, like good stuff, is by hitting as many things as possible. So for example, yesterday with Seiji walking around here in Enoshima, I got to introduce him. He's Japanese, but I got to introduce him to Enoshima, and we saw all the different aspects of Enoshima, which he knew the name, and I told him, I said, look, there's a lot more there, that you don't know about, like people don't know. I'm going to take you on my Enoshima, because I used to go out here and camp all the time, illegally, of course, but I used to camp because there's no campsites. Back then, nobody cared. And so I showed him, and we started out at the beach. You'll see as we go here, we start out at the beach, which is like very modern, very young. There's like, there's those beach houses there. And then you got everybody having fun, and everybody's very not self-conscious, which is what I love about Japanese. That's one of the things when I got to Japan. I was like, wow, there was especially at the beach culture in Japan was very natural. Everybody's just having fun. Like nobody was like, there was no pride or ego. You can see a lot of people in the video. They're like doing the peace sign, and they're just being normal. Like there's a vibe that I can't quite put it into words. And when I try to put it into words, someone's going to say, oh, here's an exception, there's an exception. But I can tell you, like, I was in Japan for a long time. You know what I mean? And I still think it's true. I still think there's an innocence about the Japanese people. I think it's less than there used to be, though. That's one thing. A little bit less. Things change over time, right? As maybe because of the internet or globalization or travel. I don't know what it is, but either way. But I think it's still there. You can see it in the video, right? So we got we got the beach, we got the sexy girls, right? We got people laughing, we got fun, we got dogs, and then we walk over across the bridge. And there's Enoshima Island. Now, Enoshima Island is a totally different world. I mean, it is like night and fucking day. That's what I love about Enoshima. It's like, and this is, when you travel, oh God, there's so much to say here. So many aspects of things to think about. But like, two people can go to the same place and one person didn't see it, And 3 people could go and they see different things. And 100 people could go. And 1,000 people could go. Really? 100,000 people, and there's one person who really gets a different view or a more deep view of that place. And that's what I always want to be. I always want to be that guy who's like looking a little closer, and then I'm putting the piece together. So here's my view of this particular place and why it's so interesting. Because like I said, I grew up on the beach. You go to the beach, you surf. Everybody wears black wetsuits. California, there was like a rule, you're not supposed to fucking wear colored wetsuits, which I bought. And of course, everybody thought it was like some kind of disco thing, they give me shit about it all the time. But I got it at half price. I didn't really care. But everybody else, there's still a thing in some cities in California about black wetsuits. Seriously, not kidding. Yeah, if you're not a surfer, you wouldn't know. But there's some conservative. I just can't stand that kind of stuff. But so let's see, where was I going here? So, but in California, you just surf, you go home, right? In Japan, if you go to the right place, you can actually do a lot more than just surf. So as we go along this video, you're going to see we're going to go up the hill, and there's that island which is connected by a bridge, and we're going to go. That's actually Enoshima Island. We're going to go up the bridge past all the little shops and like a lot of seafood. There's like seafood restaurants everywhere. Those girls wearing those colorful clothes, those are the yukatas, which is it's like the summertime kimono. And, you can just kind of get a feel for what Japan is really like. Some people don't really know. They think, well, there's old Japan, there's new Japan. What is it really like? This is one aspect. There's definitely plenty of little shopping streets like this. Especially in Kyoto, there's some really great ones. But you can find places, cute little shopping streets, different areas, right? Often they have cobblestone roads and lanterns, a lot of lanterns. Instead of like bright, ugly street lights. When I go to LA, that's the one thing I just can't stand. The street lights are so ugly. When I sit up, I shot those videos from top of Hollywood Hills. A lot of the videos back, let's see, was about a year ago. But it's so ugly at night. I was always so depressed. Nobody else would be like this. But for me, like living in Japan and China, like there's these beautiful. The Japanese, they consider light to be important, So the lighting in a Japanese restaurant, the lighting in a Japanese city, the Japanese house, there's definitely a sophistication, a soft light in like nice areas, I'd say that probably the Americans are better at lighting an office, maybe, like a bright office. You need a lot of light, for working. But the Japanese have this kind of, I don't know, it's just a very livable type feeling. And I like that. It's just like a homey, nice, I'm not like, even if I do business, I'm not like, my brain is not, inside my DNA is not some kind of computer or something. You know what I mean? There's like a human DNA, right? So I like things that make me feel good. Like, and I like nice lighting. I like, this is not a great example. Kamakura is like pretty modern actually, but there's some places that are just insane. Like they're so beautiful. I'm serious. You're just like, whoa, like am I in a fucking movie or something? Like seriously, you're walking down some places in Japan. You're just like, whoa, wow, And I love that. I love that kind of stuff. So then you got the shops, and then we come up, and then you go around, We walk all around the island. We walk up high. You can see Mount Fuji. I'm going to put a Mount Fuji picture at the end, I think, if I can, on this video. But basically, like, Mount Fuji's to the right as we go up the island. And then you come around the back, and that's beautiful. That is what's happening. The reason why I wanted to go now, the reason why I dragged Seiji along this early is because the typhoon waves were coming in. So we got some surf earlier before that. And then now on the backside of the island, you can see the raging surf. And I like that because the Japanese don't think of their country as wild and powerful, but actually a lot of the Japanese countryside is very, like, huge trees, massive swells, typhoons, powerful, because the Japanese think of, in general, their country as a small country. You'll often hear Japanese say, "Wow, it's small," and there isn't much space. Okay, that's true, but in another sense, there's this. They I think they don't see. Sometimes it's difficult to see what's in front of you, right? It's too close, right? Actually, Japan has some really cool, powerful things, especially up in Hokkaido, the northern island. There's basically 4 islands, right? The northern island. That island, you just see, like, just amazing vistas. You think you're in Australia or, you know what I mean? Like some big place, right? It doesn't have to be big, right? It's just countries are just fake boundaries, right? What the fuck, right? So no meaning. But so you'll see the power of the ocean, and that's not the peak. Actually, the waves were getting smaller when I shot that video, unfortunately. But you can still see the power. I love swimming, so I wanted to jump in and just swim around the rocks, and then, like, you say just like you're gonna die. I'm like, I always do that. I love that, and I come crashing up on the rocks, but I grab onto. Either way. That's my thing. I love doing that. I love 2 things. I love swimming in typhoon where there's rocks and there's that stuff, caves, underwater caves, and I love to challenge the limits of my body and my mind. And I also like what do you call it? There's a movie called The Deep Blue, Le Grand Bleu, French movie, and it's about those free divers. I didn't even know the name for it when I saw that movie, but I used to do that on my own. I love to go down as deep as I fucking can with no air, with no tanks, right? And then come back up. I did that. I did that totally naturally. Like, I went pretty goddamn deep. I don't know exactly because I didn't measure it. I definitely went way past 30 meters. I know that, past 90 feet. Because the scuba divers that I'd pass they have a license. They could only go to 30 meters in the Philippines. And I'd pass them going down with no tank, right? So I know I was deeper than that. But I don't know how deep it was. But either way, that's the type of challenge I like. So I like that aspect of Japan is exciting. You know what I mean? Like, so much of life now is just sitting around fucking just, I don't know, just talking about politics or just stupid things that mean nothing to me. Like, so, I if I'm around people too much, like boring people, like society basically too much, I'll go out and jump in the fucking water, like near these rocks. Like, I'll jump off the rock and then get washed up on the rocks and grab onto the rocks as the waves grab me. And I just feel this jolt of fucking electricity. And I know my body. I know my abilities. And I know that it can also kill me too. I'm not stupid. I know that I have to be very careful when I hit the rocks to grab them in a certain way, which I practice, right? So it's my own little sport. I never see anybody else do it. But I love it. And so sometimes when society gets too boring for me, too dull, I need to fucking just jump in there. Like, it's, hey guys, I got to go. And then just go jump in and just do something real, like a man thing, right? Then I come back and I'm like, I'm totally fine. Like, my mindset is like clear again, sometimes I just need that. And Japan always kind of has that, not too far away. There's always something kind of cool. There's some great fucking rock climbing in Tanzawa. Oh, so awesome. Fuck, dude. There is some serious rock climbing in Japan, and it's really good. It's called the stream climbing. You basically, we can do it if you guys want to do it at the summit. You guys we can go out to Tanzawa, and you climb up a waterfall with Japanese sandals. I'm going to show you some Japanese sandals in this video somewhere, but these are not the type of sandals. There's another type called waraji. Waraji are like, they're like tatami mat, that same material they're made out of, and they're They don't seem like they'd be good for climbing, but they are absolutely the best possible shoes, the best footwear, I should say, in a slippery environment. So if you have like slippery rocks with like green, what is that called? Like slime basically on it, where you just can't even stand on them. You keep eating shit all the time, right? And then you can really hurt yourself, right? The Waraji sandals are the only thing. There's no technology has beat these things. I'm telling you, I tried everything. They are the only thing you can use that's safe. They are amazing. You can really grip on those ungrippy rocks, and then you rock climb with those sandals up a waterfall. So the waterfall is coming down on you, and you're going up this waterfall, and it doesn't cost anything. We just take the bus out there, and then you just go up the mountain. You know what I mean? No problem. It is tough climb though. If you guys are climbers, or any of you guys are rock climbers, it's anywhere from 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", 5'11". So not too many 5'11" spots, but basically it's like 5'8" to 5'10". So it's a decent climb so check that online before you say you want to go, because it's not easy, right? It's a real climb, right? But so there's that kind of stuff in Japan. So the thing is, and all this stuff is like within striking distance of Tokyo. You got the temples, you got the beaches, you got the girls, obviously. You got the food. The food is fucking great. And then you got the climbing, and you got the surfing, and you got the snowboarding, because Japan literally has the best snow in the world, the best powder. Like, no question about it. The lightest powder in the world. Japan has it. True story. You won't, after you snowboard Japan, you'll never snowboard Canada again. Unless you have to. And then Canada is like awesome, right? Switzerland, awesome. Telling you, go to Japan in the middle of the winter, get at a day when it just snowed, in fucking insane. So now more and more championships, snowboard championships are happening in Japan, because they finally figured it out. So one of the things about traveling is you kind of want to figure out before everybody else figures it out. Like, I knew this because I didn't believe. I'll tell you that. Here's how I found it out. Is I really like skiing, right? And I like snowboarding. I'm not the greatest snowboarder. I haven't snowboarded that long, but I really like I used to, like, when in high school we'd we'd just ski like crazy, like, black triangles and all that stuff at Snowbird and stuff in Salt Lake City. And I love like going off what is that called? Backcountry, like illegal. You go where it's like dangerous, down chutes and things. I like that kind of stuff. And so that is not nearly as exciting as jumping in the water at the Typhoon. That it's basically like taking an escalator compared to that, but it's still pretty fun, and you can die, right? So there's some good parts to it. They get my adrenaline going. I get excited. I enjoy it. I do enjoy it. Sometimes it gets exciting, right? If you hit a tree or something, then that can be pretty rough. I've done that. Gone backwards down the chute. They almost knocked out. But that is available in Japan. And Japan is, what do you call it? It's not anal. In some ways, it's so fucking anal. So don't get me wrong. Like, Japan is like the most anal country in the world in some ways. But in other ways, it's totally not anal. And that's the weird thing about Japan. It's just so weird. As long as you follow the rule, you figure out what the rule is, then you can kind of do things you could never do in America. And you could say that in some ways, they don't use common sense. They use rules. And then that's the way they run the society. Like yesterday, I was out in the Typhoon surf. And the lifeguard came out, and he's screaming at me. And he's like, it's too big. You can't be out here. And I was like, hey, I ain't going anywhere. Because I know the law is that the jurisdiction is they can't technically arrest me for being out when the waves are big. Because every summer this happens to me when the typhoon comes through, right? I'm always out there, and the lifeguards are always trying to get me in. Okay, basically. And I'm the only one out there. So I'm just out there, and they're screaming at me. And then finally they try to swim out, but often they can't even get out if it's too big, right? So either way, this guy yesterday could swim. So he came out, and he's like, yeah, come in. I'm like, I'm not coming in. I'm like, I know the rules here. I know that you can't arrest me. Like, I ain't going anywhere. He's like, I'll take you to the police station. I said, yeah, you can take me to the police station, but you can't arrest me. I know that, Like, this is not technically illegal. You don't have jurisdiction, right? Because I knew the rules, right? which was good. I was telling him because I liked the guy. The guy actually I could tell he had a pretty good personality. This lifeguard, and I used to be a lifeguard in high school, so I was like, I'm not gonna. But at the same time, I wasn't gonna do what he wanted because, one, I knew he couldn't stop me, and two, I fucking loved waves. I love big waves, right? Those are fucking big waves, right? I'm gonna fucking be out there, right? The fuck, right? I'm not gonna go in, right? No way. Once a year only, the wave surfs are big in Japan, right? Surfs big. Not once, but I mean, it's pretty powerful when the typhoon really, really peaks, man. It's fucking crazy, right? So I finally said to the guy, I said, look, when can I go out without you hassling me? And he said, and he said, after 5. He goes, we all get after 5 and there's no rules after that. I said, okay, thank you. So that's how Japan is not anal. Like, he knows I'm going to go out, right? He knows I'm going to do what I'm not supposed to do, but as long as I don't do it on the hours, then you're okay to do it. And so you just got to kind of figure Japan out. You got to, what is the loophole here that makes sense, And actually, it's funny because when you know Japan well enough to find the loophole in a nice way, they really kind of respect it because they're like, wow, because a lot of Westerners will say, screw you, I can go out here, I know you can't arrest me, like I'm just gonna stay out here, that's not the way to do it. You gotta in Japan, you gotta kind of like, there's a way to negotiate, and one of the ways is by being nice. You be nice, you be logical. And then you kind of like, he was saying like people die, like he said, like you're like an Olympic swimmer. That's what he said, actually. He goes, you're like an Olympic swimmer, because it was huge. The waves were pretty big, but the tide, what is it called? It was like a rip tide. Like the water was moving, basically, whatever the fuck you call it. Like the water was really moving, and I was like swimming hard to stay in place so that I wouldn't get drift down the beach, right? Because I wanted to be at this one peak. And then he said, what's going to happen if those kids on the beach watch you? They copy you. They're all going to come out and drown. And I said, well, that's good. And he said, drown? I said, yeah, that's, you go save him. I said, but no, look, a child, when he's born, as soon as a child is born, a child can swim. You guys can check this on the internet. When a child is like 1 minute old, they can throw him in the water, and the baby will actually naturally go underwater and come up swimming. And then after a few months, if you don't let the baby swim, they lose that ability and they start to get scared of water. But babies, we came from, our humans, like basically, where we came from, we got all kinds of abilities we don't know about. And little babies, they can swim. They can naturally swim. They're not scared at all. They'll just jump in, go underwater. They know how to hold their breath, and they'll come up. There's a lot of cool videos about this. And I was like, wow, it's so important to get the baby to follow his natural abilities rather than stop him and then try to start him again with some fake swimming lessons that are going to make him uncomfortable and teach him lame ways to swim, right? Not let him just be natural like a baby would be, right? But either way, I told him these stories and he looked at me like, wow. I said, yeah, go on YouTube, check it out. Because he was saying, like, basically, I was going to cause these guys to die. I said, look, it's the opposite, man. I said, those kids on the beach, the reason why in Japan there's a lot of drownings every summer. I said, the reason why they drown so easily is because they never learn to swim. You don't let them swim. Whenever the waves are big or it's too deep, you don't let them go out. So they don't get to challenge themselves. They don't get to learn their limits. I'm not saying go do things that you can't do. I'm saying, like, know your limits, but keep, improving your limits, right? Keep up in the fucking game, right? Keep making yourself better, but also at the same time, be realistic, like know your limits, right? It's really important. You have to know that you do have limits. And also as you change, you get older, or if you have an injury and you're not working out for a while, whatever, you're going to be different, right? The one thing I can't stand is when older guys, they act like they're young and they go get injured. It's like, dude, you're different now, So part of life is like, it's like a dichotomy, like everything, right? One of it is challenge yourself. The other one is being realistic, right? When I see kids being told that they can do anything, you can be a trillionaire, you can do this, you can be the president. I don't know, not everybody can be the fucking president, and not everybody can be a trillionaire, right? I think it's complicated. I'm not going to say I wouldn't say that to a kid, but there's something fucking wrong with society right now. That's what I'm saying. There's something wrong because somebody doesn't believe something. Somebody's not giving these kids good information. I think. I think that. Yeah. So that's that. I really encourage you guys to have both. That challenge, that optimism, that fucking discipline to grow, that discipline to learn the skills you need to learn. At the same time, is a realism of understanding the limits of yourself or the limits of whatever, right? And it's a fine fucking line. And everybody, that line is different. But in the end, here's the thing. The line exists. So you have to find that line. And sometimes the line isn't where you want. And that's okay too. Because you can't be good. Everybody can't be great at everything, right? You know, I told you in the last video, I said, I'm not a great surfer, right? And I'm not even, I would say I'm not even a good surfer. And I've surfed my whole life. Long story, maybe I could have if this and that happened, but it didn't happen. And I never became good. And I actually might do an episode on surfing at one point, because it is actually interesting why I didn't get good. But a lot of my friends are professional surfers, and they're very good. Now, not a lot of them are retired, or their sons are now professionals, but like a lot of my friends were very, very good surfers, and still are today, you know, and I just wasn't. And so part of me was kind of accepting in my life today, you know, that I'm not a great surfer, you know. I like surfing. I've had a few good waves that would fool you. You know, you might think, oh, you know, he's a good surfer. I've had a couple of lucky waves, because I do understand the surf very well. And every once in a while I'll have a dynamic wave. And someone will watch me, my friends will be like, oh, he's a great surfer. I saw him do this. And it's like I always interrupt him. I'm like, no, I'm not a great surfer. Like, I'm not. That was the luckiest wave. You just happened to see me on the luckiest wave. And then they're like, no. I'm like, no. Because I know, like, actually I'm quite good at some things. Like, I really am good at some things. And this is what a lot of people now, they don't even know what they're good or bad at. They just have to say, you know, basically what a lot of people think is, if you have self-esteem, then you're going to say you're good. Like, if you don't have self-esteem, then you're going to doubt yourself. It's not that clear. No fucking way. No, sometimes you get more self-esteem by accepting yourself and seeing yourself and realizing, because when you do that, you start to get a realism in your mind, and you start to realize, I guess it takes time to get your vision clear, but when you settle down and you really relax, what often happens, I think, in my experience, when you do accept reality and you go into that, like, almost like peace mode, like looking at yourself, realizing you don't have to do anything for any other reason, but you're searching for truth. You're searching for fucking truth. What often happens is very unexpected, because often you find that there is something that you were quite good at, but you couldn't accept it before. Or, you know what I mean? Like, you got fucked over on it. It didn't blossom yet. And that's often the thing that you really are called to do in life. But by chasing those things that you're not good at, because of fucking quote unquote self-esteem, you know, then you know, I'm a great doctor, right? If you're not a great doctor, you don't like helping people with the medical stuff, you know, you don't like sore throats, you're not going to be a great doctor. But you might have something else that you're like really good at, right? And I think that the one thing leads to the other. The less you lie to yourself, the more you allow your coffee cup to be empty instead of half warm, half full. You know, you empty it out and you wait. You just fucking wait. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what I don't know. Maybe I'm good at nothing. Like, I don't know. Let me see. Let me honestly look at my life. Let me look around. Let me see what I like. Let me find. And then what happens is you'll eventually say, wow, you know, like, you know, for myself, that's how I've come to a lot of my biggest realizations about myself. Because I'll be like, I'll start to realize, oh my gosh, I actually am really good at this one thing. And it's like, wow. And then I get really into it. And then it's like, people say, well, how do you find out your real gift? Well, one of the ways is by not doing what everybody else does, which is basically say you're good at everything. And like, you know what I mean? Like, to think that you need to think the way they say you have to think. And I don't mean in the evil sense. I mean, just like, it's just kind of like what humans kind of do. We copy each other, right? And another thing I really fucking disagree with, and on the traveling topic, is that one of the things when you start traveling and you really travel around the world, like you really like do like long-term travel, right? You realize that there are a lot of cool places you can go and you can stay for like $10 a night in youth hostels. And if you are, if you haven't done it, if you haven't really traveled, you're going to think that, I don't know, that you couldn't really do it, or it wouldn't be fun, or something like that, right? But the reality is that you're fucking stuck. You're fucking stuck where you are. And the reason why you're stuck is not because you're dumb or your mind or, like either not money. Is that the reason why you're stuck is like contracts. You signed a contract for a car. You signed a contract for a house. You signed a contract for a cell phone. And if you break these, then you're going to have to pay this. Or you're married to a girl. This is the biggest reason not to get married, is that you're stuck. You're so stuck. Even if you had the best girl in the world, you're stuck, man. You're so stuck in one place. You don't have the ability to move around, right? Traveling is about getting out there and seeing that, getting away from society, away from your society that's holding you back. So, for example, a Japanese guy might want to get out of Japan, right? That might be where he unlocks his brain and finds his freedom. And he might say, well, why did you come to Japan? Japan's like this, Japan's like that. But it isn't. See, it's like that for him. But it's not going to be like that for you. So that's the thing, right? That's the thing. That's why it's so confusing. Travel's so confusing. Is it like you're thinking, well, why would they come here? Why would I go there? It's like logically you can't figure this shit out. You just got to go do it, right? You just got to get out there and see it, right? One of the biggest things I think about traveling, one of the biggest fucking gifts, really, one of the biggest gifts, when you realize, I just said a little bit about it before, when you realize that there's awesome places in the world where you can pay $10 for one night, no deposit, no weirdness, no like monthly contract, you can pay $10 a night and you can sleep and you can, in areas like interesting or cool. Once you really realize that you can live for $10 a day for housing, about $10 a day, I think that is one of the superpowers. I really do. I don't think most people understand this. When I am in a situation, I could tell you how it works out. It seems like I'm talking about money. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about freedom. And when you have the ability, the reason why, okay, a lot of human, I said I was going to be jumping around a lot, and I will be on this episode. But like the reason why, for example, like, okay, I got a friend and he hates his neighbor. He absolutely hates his neighbor. And, he was telling me his neighbor's like paranoid and this and that. And it sounded like he was, actually. I heard the stories. It sounded pretty bad. But why does he hate his neighbor so much? The reason why is because he's stuck next to his neighbor. He owns a house. That guy owns a house. So they're both pretty young and they're going to be living next door probably for 20, 30 years, right? So these guys are not the moving types, right? And it's a nice area. So they're probably going to live there next door. So the reason why he hates the guy is because he's stuck next door to the guy. Now, let's say that same guy was living next door to me, like here at this, where I am right now, temporary place in Japan. I wouldn't even care or notice the guy. I might say hi or whatever in the morning or whatever, but I'm not going to. The reason why my friend was, had such strong emotions about his neighbor is because he can't change his neighbor. His neighbor, he's stuck with his neighbor, right? So when you're stuck with something, it changes the dynamics of that thing. And when you're free, when you have the ability to leave, even though that person's the same and that situation's the same, when you have the ability to leave, it completely changes things. Like for example, like, I don't know if it's a good example or not, but I like this example. in the old days in the West, I watched this one Western movie, and they said put him in the stocks, right? And they put this guy in the stocks in the middle of town. So he's standing there. He's got his head in the stocks. He's got his arms in the stocks, and he's totally vulnerable. And then, sun goes down, and then everybody in this town hated this guy. So they're spitting on him and yelling at him and kicking him, and he can't do anything because he's in the stocks, right? I think that, the reason why that guy's so miserable, and there also is a type of person who is somewhat, what do you call it? What is the word? It's they take advantage of other people who are weak, right? So they see a guy in the stocks. They might not actually hate that guy, but they might go, break a bottle over his head just because he's vulnerable, and they know that he can't do anything to them. They might come out with like a mask on or something, right? And just do it just because they're frustrated with their lives, right? So there's a lot of things that happen when you're stuck. You put yourself at risk for a very unhealthy type individual who isn't out for anybody's best interest, right? And you don't have the ability to change. You can't get out of there, right? So I think a lot of people, they're basically in the stocks in their life. And traveling and realizing that you can stay in different places in the world for $10 a day, I think it changes everything. Because like $300, man, everybody can afford that. That's nothing, And believe it or not, there's even cheaper. I remember I stayed in a place on kind of the edge of a volcano. It was Lake Toba. There's a lake inside the volcano in Indonesia, and there was a little rickety wooden house on the very peak, like right on the edge. It was so beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. Like it was like picture perfect location. And there was a house up there, and in my travel book I had at the time, it said that they will let you stay there. So I walked up there, and then I asked the lady, and she's like, "Oh, sure." So she gave me a bed. Now the bed was wooden, it wasn't I think I had a couple a couple of blankets or whatever, but it wasn't a comfortable bed. But it was 50 cents for that room, and included breakfast. So 50 cents. And so I stayed there, and the bed was a little uncomfortable, but I did sleep. I slept. And then in the morning, I went out to get breakfast, and I could not believe it. It was so, I still to this day, I never forget how beautiful that view was. It was absolutely stunning. I mean, it was beyond anything. It was just amazing. It was sheer rock down at the bottom, down this beautiful lake. And I'm sitting there, and there's this like really sweet Indonesian lady, quite young too, and she's like serving me whatever she was serving me. With the food wasn't really great, but I just that was 50 cents, right? 50. That was 50, and I've seen a lot of stuff like that in the world, like good deals, So it's not about money. And that's what people get confused. So let's say you're a corporate guy listening, right? You're like, oh, Ronin man's talking about cheap places. I'd never do that. I got a company expense account. Hey, man, it is a skill. Okay, it is a life skill to be able to take off and to live cheap and to see new things and to be able to break away from anybody at any time. Because when you go to a place like that, you're unreachable. I mean, if you don't want to be reachable, you can just totally do your thing. And I'm not recommending somebody be on the run or something. I'm just saying, like, sometimes you just need time, for something. You need to figure something out. Or maybe you want to write a book, or maybe you want to study something, or make something, or create something, or maybe just you had a lot of stuff going on, and you're just feeling like super stressed, and you just want peace, right? Well, peace doesn't come from a nice, hotel. Peace comes from time. Time is what gives you peace. Time is the most important thing. You need time to relax. You can go to like a weekend retreat and pay like $1 zillion for 2 days or whatever, and you go home and you're basically still stressed because your nervous system has not relaxed yet. Whereas when you go somewhere, let's say you go for 6 months, like I went to India for quite a long time, and I can tell you this, I came back to Tokyo and I really had deep insights to myself. Like that was a fundamental time for me because I had traveled a lot when I was young, and then I had gotten successful and I had gotten away from it, and then I went back and I had the skills. I had the skills that I got when I was like in my early 20s, and I was older then, but I had those skills and I was able to navigate, and I had a great time, and I was able to take those 4 months off. And just to I didn't even know what I was doing, really. I just knew that I was like, I talked about this in the other video, but I felt like I was having a heart attack from stress. And I knew that everything the doctors were telling me was bad idea, like drugs, bad idea. Meditation was not going to work. I knew that I needed something deeper. And I know from my experience traveling is that time and new images, new people, and a totally non-stressful environment. Paying $10 a night, you got no stress. You just don't have any stress. Like, you can't have any stress. It's like you got nothing. Especially if you're young. Geez, I mean, your parents will give you the money. You know what I mean? Like, don't even worry about it. Basically, if you're young and you want to travel, like, beg, borrow, steal. Because the thing is, like, you only have a few opportunities. Like as a younger person, it's hard to really put it into perspective. But I'll tell you one story happened to me. Was my mom? She came to visit me. I don't know somewhere where it was. She travels a lot, so she came by and saw me, and she said we were talking about traveling, and there was somebody that we knew who was there was this messed up person, right? So my mom said, and this person had all the opportunities in the world, right? And she said, when you went on that trip around the world, when you were like in your early 20s, when you went on that trip, you did something that he couldn't do. And I'm like, what do you mean? He has all the money in the world. He could go do that right now. She's like, yeah, but it's not the same. She said, you were 22. You were 22, and your body was 22, and your mind was 22. And you were, and the world was different, right? Nobody can recreate the trip you did around the world in 89 and 1990 now. It doesn't exist. That world's gone. It's like trying to go to a house that's been taken down. It doesn't exist, The sweetness of the people in Asia, the kindness, the hospitality, the time in history, all that stuff has changed, right? So that's why travel is so important, is because you don't realize that things are going to change and then things disappear, and then, but if you see them, if you experience them, if you like soak them in, they're part of you. Like everything that I saw is a part of me. It really is. It really, truly, truly, truly is. Everything I learned is like gold now. So I will say that traveling it allows you to break away from bad situations. That's super important. It gives you a new perspective. You just never can look at life the same after you've done like a year around the world as like a hippie traveler. You really, I'm serious. You can never look at life the same. Like before, I just say one idea. Before I went traveling, I wanted a BMW because I was really into cars. I wanted a BMW with a sunroof and a certain color, I remember exactly the color, British racing green with a tan interior, sunroof. That's what I wanted, and leather seats, and sport model. I wanted that kind of BMW back in the 80s. And I wanted, let's see what else. I wanted expensive sunglasses. There's a lot of stuff I wanted back then, right? In my mind. If I was honest with myself, I was brainwashed. I thought I need to have this stuff. This is to make me happy, And then I went around the world, and I don't know, like there's something about it, like leaving all your shit or selling all your shit. There's something that's amazing that happens to you. There's something spiritual that happens. Like you realize it's all just crap, And if you have to do it 2 or 3 times in your life, it's even better lesson because it really doesn't have any meaning, but it seems like it has meaning if you have a lot of it around you. Somehow it seems real, you know. But when you travel, you have to get rid of it, right? You can't carry a sofa as a carry-on, right? You can't, you know what I mean? You can't, and you can't pay, you know, a mortgage and a sofa and you know, all kinds of payments while you're gone if you're not working right, if you're traveling. So that forces you to make painful, tough decisions. And that's not fun. But afterwards, you'll start to realize a lot of stuff. I'm not going to give it away what you realize, because I think everybody does have different realizations at different times. But there's some very heavy realizations that you have when you really break away from society and the matrix. You know, there's some very deep, yeah, man, like about yourself, about society, about who you are, about how you used to think, you know, and like what are new models of thinking. And, you know, this is what, you know, okay, these are the things you get from traveling. And that's why I think traveling cheap is so important, because you might be rich, you might be poor, but you might lose your money. Like I've been rich, I've been poor, both, many times over. So, you know, you need that safety valve. You need that way to, if you need to change, you know, like being the one of the core concepts of Unblackmailable is you're the most blackmailable if you can't move. So if you're in the stocks, you know, if you're sitting in the stocks and you're tied in by your car, by your wife, by your, you know, payments, by your some kind of bullshit that you got, just all the crap that you accumulate, and the friends that you don't really care about and don't care about you, and the belief systems that no longer work, you know, the maps, the mental maps that you're following, they're just total bullshit. You know, traveling, when you travel to a new place, one thing that's really interesting is that you cannot be the same person. See, if there's a way out, like if there's a way that you could be the same person, you would do it, because it's quite painful changing. It's quite difficult and scary. But what happens is you can't. Okay, so let me give you an example. So let's say that you really like ribs, right? You just love ribs, and your like specialty is ribs. You're like, you know all about eating ribs, and your friends, you know, you always talk about ribs. You make ribs. You know all the restaurants and all that stuff. And then let's say that you start traveling and you start living in Asia and different places, right? Well, those ribs, I mean, you can pretend like they're as good as back home. You know, there's going to be a rib place somewhere, you know, in your city, right? And you can go there and you can eat it, and it's fine the first time. But the reality is that it's not as good as back home. It's just not. You know, the ribs, you're not going to get Southern cooking in Tokyo. There's very good food here. There's the excellent food here. Sometimes it's even better, but there's going to be a lot of things that you just can't get the same as you could back home. And it causes pain. You know, a lot of guys, they spend a lot of money trying to recreate their life. And that's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. No problem. Yeah, it's a natural thing. But there's a point where you're kind of like, wait a second, I keep buying these ribs and honestly, they don't taste that good here. Like really, you know, the ribs are not that great here, you know, and they're really expensive. You know, like they're often like way more expensive than they were back home, because it's catering to Westerners or whatever. Or if you're Japanese and you travel, you know, like Japanese food outside Japan, I don't even eat it. I won't even eat Japanese food outside Japan, because I know Japanese food. Like I love Japanese food. But I also know why it's good. And one of the reasons why it's good is like a sushi shop, let's say in Ginza, fish is delivered 5 times a day. Fresh fish. They throw the other fish away, or they cook it and use it for something else. 5 times a day, fresh fish comes in. There's no sushi place in the world that gets 5 deliveries a day. The reason why is because there's no delivery system for 5 times a day fish. And the reason why is because the standards are not as high. So if you eat sashimi somewhere else, it's going to be old. That's just the way it is. And it might even have worms. It might be dangerous. It's quite common. So I understand that I do get nostalgic, and I might have like a Kit Kat Japanese version, or I might have I don't know, maybe buy some natto frozen. So I like natto. It's a fermented soybean thing, and you can get frozen natto fairly reasonably in the supermarkets, and that basically is enough for me. I'm like, okay, I got a little Japan in me here. I'm good, If I'm somewhere else and I'm feeling like a little nostalgic or whatever, it's okay to do that. But in the end, what happens is it's quite meaningful. That's why I'm saying this. What happens is in the end is you realize that there's other things that you can do that are just as good, And maybe before you wouldn't have been, you would have been embarrassed about it or whatever. But you're like, actually, like this is fine. Like I remember, like, Japanese pizza has this is like a boring example, and you might even know this, but it has like corn on top and squid and stuff, right? And I was like, no, I'm not going to eat pizza with corn and squid. No way, And I actually did. I actually wasn't into corn and squid for a long time. But there was one day I was sitting there and like there was like pizza. I don't remember what it was, if it was like at a company thing or whatever. And there was the thing. I just picked it up. I put some Tabasco on it, and I ate it, and I was like, it's not that bad actually, And then I kind of thought, oh, why have I been so stubborn about this one, Like, just enjoy the pizza with the toppings the country has on them. Like, actually, pepperoni is terrible for your body, right? They've proven like the nitrates in the meat is terrible, cancer causing big time. So actually, I'm better off getting squid or octopus or whatever corn pizza, and and there's a lot of stuff like this, And sometimes it's kind of pathetic. Like a bunch of Westerners, they can't get a cake, right? So they'll have like a candy bar with like a candle in it or something. I say pathetic because it's like you're just like, okay. But people that have been overseas long enough, they're like, this is a cake. I'm exaggerating with the candy bar, but you know what I mean. Like, you got to have a little sense of humor about it. You're like, okay, I want it, but I can't get it, so here's what I get. And to enjoy it the same amount, right? And also to realize that, there's a lot of good substitutes for so many things that you like. And you might think I'm talking something not that meaningful. But you'll be surprised how one idea or changing your ability to change is like it's like a bunch of icebergs or something in the North Pole. And when it finally starts to fall, when like they just sit there, like they don't move, right? And then when they start to fall, if you go to YouTube and you watch like, cascading glaciers or something, right? They just start going, it's like, they start falling like crazy. And eventually there's no glacier left, right? So that's how your mind changes. That's how you are too. One little change can often lead to or flexibility where you would have been rigid before. Thought, food, idea, way of doing something, way of thinking about something, a way of thinking about death, way of thinking about God, a way of thinking about truth, or a way of thinking about some concept, that you have, and it can start that cascading change of things where you find yourself suddenly very, and when you change, there's a very, I don't know, there's like a fresh feeling to it. There's something really very, very healthy about it. And then you realize like you can, the final is where you can kind of see your old life and you actually don't want it. Like you're like, I was just doing that because that guy said that. Because of advertising, or you end up, I would say in the end, like the final stage, or that I know of, there might be a stage past this, is where you really are a different person, but it's not like you've taken on the new ideas. You're actually a more flexible person who is just like, okay, let's do that. All right, we're going to do this. All right, well, this time we'll do this. All right, we're going to dance to this kind of music tonight. All right, let's make the best of this, have fun. And then you end up laughing, having a great time. And it increases your, the depth and the width of your enjoyment of life in the end. And there's just something fundamentally healthy about changing. Really, you can feel it, right? You know that feeling? It's like this invigorating kind of feeling of learning something new, where you actually, this is what travel gives you. And this is why I really recommend to think of inexpensive travel. Because it's not about the room, it's not about the air conditioning, it's not about the train was this type of train or that type of train. It's about time, and it's about life, and it's about experiences, and it's about you, and it's about the ability to not be in the stocks of life, where you're like a sitting duck, where you're a piñata, where everybody just can come up and hit you with a stick, where you say, I don't want this. Sometimes in life, it's not about being smart. It's not about trying hard. Sometimes it's just about the ability to leave. Like, that's the most powerful superpower sometimes, is that you just say, hey, I don't want to stay. I'm out of here. Or I have options. I'm going to go somewhere else. And that's the other reason, the final reason, which I said before, but it's once you have that skill, that ability, that knowledge, that fluidity with traveling, you really have, which is one of the modules in Unblackmailable, is the power of walking away. You really have that because you have real options. You know that no matter where you are, no matter what you have, is that you have the ability, you sitting right now listening to this, you have the ability to go somewhere new, meet new people, eat new food, start a new career, and completely distance yourself from something that is making you unhappy. That is the most beautiful thing. It's like you discover yourself, but it's through a combination of the people you meet, the places you go, the food you eat, the things you say, the ways of saying jokes, the weather, there's so many aspects of it, right? So I hope this has been good. I probably isn't what you expected about traveling, but I can say that it is a fucking superpower. It is a superpower, and it's proven to me many, many times. It's almost like you're Houdini. Something super uncomfortable. You realize something was fake that you thought was real. You realize you're in a situation that's not good. Or even you realize that you're your own worst enemy in some scenario, right? Could be some introspection where you realize I'm not able to deal with this. I need space. I need to get the fuck out of here. But what am I going to do, right? Where are you going to go? The thing about traveling abroad or around the world is in America, it's all kind of the same. No matter where you go, it's expensive. And you need a lot of money, I'm not saying now, okay, I will say this. I'm not saying that you want to do what I did, where I went to Japan with $500 in a credit card. That I have extreme ability to recreate my life somewhere else. I have that from my parents. We used to move a lot when I was a kid. We moved a lot. We went to trailer parks all over the place. We were estates all over the place. We really moved. And also, I had done that around the world trip for 13 months, So I had already, in many, 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 many countries, right? So you learn something in every country. You learn something new. So when I came to Japan, I wasn't, I knew I was going to make it, but I was a little bit scared. I mean, honestly, I was I knew I didn't have much. But here's why I made that decision, I was staring down the barrel of the gun of a boring life. That's why I did it. That's why I was willing to do it that time, is because I had traveled the world and then I'd gone back home, and I realized that it was going to be the leather seats in the BMW for me. It was going to be buying a house. It was going to be stocks. It was going to be a boring life, Because once you get locked in, you're pretty locked in, right? It's not easy to get out, right? I'm not stupid. Like, it's easier to get out before you get locked in, right? And I realized, like, holy shit, like, this is it. Like, if I go this route, at that time, this is back in like 1990, I was thinking, like, I'll probably fucking get some girl pregnant. I'll probably fucking get married. And I was looking around me. There was no MGTOW. There was no, like, there wasn't even PUA or anything like that. I was looking around. I was like, these people don't seem happy to me. You know, like, that. The other thing about traveling is I don't want to exaggerate this either, because there's a lot of SJWs who say, oh, the kids are happier, the poor kids here. And they take one picture and actually the kids die of a disease next week, right? I'm talking about my real experiences. Like, I really know there's different levels. There's different ways that people think about life. And there's obviously many, many different ways to be happy. But there are trends in the world. And there's some places that are hotter than others. And there's some places that are happier than others. Now, sometimes they don't even know they're happy, right? So that's one of the problems. But you can just see they're always smiling. They look, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell. And this is one thing I think a lot of guys don't understand. They're like, I went to the store and I was pissed off, but I didn't let him know. It's like, man, everybody fucking knows you were angry. I know right now, tell me the story. And I won't say this, but I'll be like, I know you're angry before you even started talking. I knew you were angry. Like, how did that guy not know? How would you know he didn't know? He knew. It's seeping out of your bones. So it's not us against society. We become part of society. We become, we're the droids or whatever they are, And if you allow it to happen. And I realized I was going that route. I was like, no, I've seen too much. I got to do more. I had heard about Japan. I was like, it was during the bubble. It was like super exciting time, tons of money in Japan, craziness. I'm like, I think I can make it in Japan. I think I can make it in Japan. I think I can get things going there. Because some countries you couldn't work, you couldn't get a visa, right? And I was like, I saved my money, and then I didn't have any money, and I had a car, and I just sold it, and I got $500, and I had a credit card, and I thought, fuck it, I'm going. If I don't do it now, I'm going to be stuck forever. So I did it. Now, keep in mind, that's 1990, and it's me. And I've done a lot of traveling, and I knew I had a lot of skills already. So don't put yourself in a bad situation. Don't listen to this and make more pain in your life, okay? You want to have a good life. I want you to have a good life. I want you to have a richer life, a freer life, away from these people trying to lock you down. A lot of women, they just want to get married. They don't even love you. They just want to get fucking married. Because in their mind, they have this idea of the white wedding and everything. It's like, it's crazy. Like, I've heard women say, I heard actually today, I heard this woman say that she knew her husband was bad for her, but she had already planned the wedding. And so she went ahead with it because it was like a dream to be married. It's like she knew the guy was no good. She knew it wasn't going to work out. But the wedding was, just for her, having a wedding was more important than having a divorce. Because she knew she was going to have a divorce. She knew, this woman. It's like crazy to me. I don't understand it. But either way, you as a guy don't feel this way about weddings, right? And you could be tricked by this type of stuff, right? And locked in by this type of stuff, right? So I say be free. I say travel. The last thing I'm going to say is the idea that there's this one girl for you, there's this one love. I just don't think that's true. I don't think, I just never thought that's true. There's so many sweet girls. I was going to go with this girl today. She wanted to take me to watch Aladdin, the movie. There's a new movie apparently. And I was going to go. That's why I wasn't going to make this episode. But I feel like I might be getting a cold because I've been having so much fun. I haven't been sleeping. And I've been up every night. And I've been having a great time in Japan. I haven't got any sleep. So I'm going to try to rest today. And I'm going to see if I can get over this kind of beginning of a cold. And kind of have an off day. When I was traveling, I would always have every month or whatever, have an off day and clean clothes, kind of relax, That's what I'm trying to do today, but it's not easy because I'm pretty excited, and I know Japan's raging right now outside. It's beautiful, sunny out there. I might actually have to go anyway. I tried to have an off day. I swear. All right, guys. I hope you guys have a good day, and anybody who's coming to the summit, let me know, and it's going to be fucking awesome. So, see you guys soon. All right, later.